آزادی بیان
言论自由
free speech.
One of our draft principles is we require and create open, diverse media so we can make well-informed decisions and participate fully in political life. Would you agree with that principle?
Of course, there is no reason not to agree with that. And I think that internet and new technologies more and more offer the possibility to open such a free market of ideas, much more than in the past, of course. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Now, in some of your work, you've talked about the resulting phenomenon of media fragmentation and suggested that there's a danger of political polarization as a result, that everyone is on the internet with like-minded people in information cocoons and self-reinforcing groups.
Yeah, listen, Timothy, I am very much in favor of new technology and very much believe in the enormous opportunities that internet will offer, is offering today, but will offer more and more in the future. Nevertheless, I don't want to be completely optimistic about that. We have to be optimistic, but also let's see which are the risks, the challenges, more than the risk, the challenges that new technologies open. And one of the challenges is, I trust that, is polarization. I mean, we are going to the internet when we can talk with our friends, with other people who share our thoughts, our opinion, our taste. And this is the challenge, because this is self-referential in a way. More than opening to other voices, internet, blogs, social networks can be also an occasion to just reinforce what I already believe.
I mean, an extreme example would be Anders Behring Breivik, the Norwegian murderer, who, as it were, reinforced his paranoid worldview through visiting the 30 websites which had that same view.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are many examples of this, of increasing fragmentation of the media system, and therefore the risk of a tendency toward polarization. Not just the new media, but think of, I mean, Fox News in the United States. Fox News is pushing towards a more polarized American society. Why is that? Because of a market need. Because Fox News has found its own niche, struggling against the competing networks. But this means that this niche is just self-referential, tries to reinforce the ideas that are already there.
And of course, what's happened, as I've observed over the last few years, is that MSNBC has become almost a Fox Arabor, partisan on the other side, and CNN is struggling in the middle.
Exactly, exactly.
Now, coming back to the notion of transparent good government, accountability, the classic million idea of being confronted with the range of arguments, one obvious way to do that is to have strong public service broadcasting and its equivalents on the internet. Is that the direction in which you think we should go?
Yeah, I think this is a possibility, that close to a market open to different voices and very fragmented market, probably the only one that can offer the plurality of a voice within one single news outlet will be public service broadcasting. The risk is, of course, that this has not to be boring. Because otherwise people will not watch, people will not connect to this internet website if this is just boring, offering a plurality of voices, but without giving, I mean, this is the point. Now, these are the main points. I don't like this. I want to see a strong point. And maybe this is the attitude of people. And this is risky, of course.
We've seen that in Europe, of course.
Yeah,
There's so many pan-European media like Arte, extremely worthy, and nobody watches.
But nobody watches. And Euronews, for instance, is another failed attempt to have a universal public sphere. So universal public sphere are risky.
Now, there's a very interesting distinction you made between what you've just talked about, which you call internal pluralism. That is to say, you have a range of views represented within, say, the BBC or the public service broadcaster or whatever the platform is, or external pluralism, where the range of political views is represented by different media. You mentioned newspapers in Scandinavia, where the newspapers are closely connected to political parties. Do you think that model is one that can be translated into the age of the internet, or does it actually lead down the path of fragmentation?
I would say that plurality of voices and fragmentation get together. They offer the same tendency. You cannot make any real difference between plurality of a voice and fragmentation. It is the same phenomenon in a way. What is the risk of plurality of voices? That you leave outside of this fragmented public sphere all those who don't have already their opinion. Right. Those who are not interested in the debate which is going on in this fragmented, in this plural public sphere, they are left at the border, at the margin of this public sphere, and this is and this is not good for an informed citizen, of course.
But let me just push you on that, because one could say, well, look, 100 years ago, the left-wing party had its newspaper, the right-wing party had its newspaper, the liberals had their party, and if you started a new movement, the entry costs were very high because you had to be able to print and sell a newspaper. Now, as we know, the entry costs are much lower. So actually you could argue that for a small new political movement, the libertarian like the Manifesto Club in this country, or the Greens, or the Peace Movement, or whatever it might be, or the anti-ACTA movement in Europe at the moment, the entry costs are actually very low. They get their voice on the internet.
Yeah, of course, you're completely right. Think of the case of Pirate Party. Born in Sweden, becoming an international Pirates Party, winning seats in the Berlin City Council and so on. But think also, I want to give a couple of examples of Italy. In Italy we have what is called the 5 Stars movement that was started by a very successful showman. He was a theater and television showman. Little by little he started his own blog, and it was very good, very successful blog.
The name was?
Beppe Grillo. Yep. Beppe Grillo. And now, little by little from this blog, he established its own party, 5 Stars movement, Movimento 5 Stelle. And this movement is becoming very successful. Very successful. I just saw last week survey research on the possible election output, and it gets 5% of the national vote, which is a lot. But on the other side, what does it mean leaving at the margin people who are not interested in politics? Take the example of Berlusconi. One opportunity, Beppe Grillo on the other side, but then, when did Berlusconi appear on the public sphere? When, at the moment in which the Italian public sphere was made up by a plurality of voices. Christian Democracy, Communist Party, Socialist Party, with their own news outlets, television, newspaper, and so on. But a lot of people was left outside of this public sphere. And then Berlusconi entered, offering a completely different set of values. new values, different from the values that were going around in the traditional Italian public sphere. And they built this success on the basis of different values that were not political values, but were the values of everyday life, of economical success, business success, beauty, whatever you like, vacation, and so on. But why did it happen? Because the public sphere in Italy at that moment was closed within the set of actors, organizations, single politicians who were already there, who were struggling, discussing each other within that framework of public sphere, but with a lot of people left outside of this public sphere. And Berlusconi just spoke to these people outside of Italian traditional public sphere.
So, I mean, if one tries to pull the threads together, it seems to me, at least part of what you're arguing is, that we need a kind of constant gardening of the public sphere, a constant attending of the public sphere, which ensures that there aren't large real constituencies, social, intellectual, cultural constituencies that are unrepresented in the media landscape.
Exactly, exactly. This is one of the problems that we face. We have to have a public sphere that is as much as possible universal, trying to involve most of the people, and not just the elitarian public sphere that in most of European countries we're used to.
Right. And
we are part of an elite. We don't have to be that.
And one could say that that is the end. The means can differ. So that, for example, in Britain that could be done more in the context of public service broadcasting because of our tradition. Elsewhere it could be done differently.
Yeah, absolutely. May I raise another point about the fragmentation? One of the challenges that the new fragmented media system places is that of scrutiny over government. When there was mass audience, when we had strong BBC, strong ABC, strong CBS, they were able, or strong New York Times, these news outlets were able to perform a very powerful action of scrutiny over government because they were able to put together a lot of people. Let's put very simple. But within the fragmented public sphere, the risk is that each news outlet reaches just a small part of the audience, a very fragmented audience. And these very few people are not able, this is a possible risk, to put in place that action of scrutiny that large audiences were able to perform.
This is very interesting because, of course, we've just had a brilliant example of where new media have played the watchdog function, namely SOPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act, where Wikipedia and Google and others mobilized successfully and turned Congress round. But that was a case where they were, in a sense, defending their own interests.
Exactly. And this is very particular interest. It's not the universal interest that mass audience was able to put together. And this makes the entire political competition more complex and, in a way, I would say, more difficult to be run. Because you have a plurality of the voices with very small support struggling in favor of very particular interest, and government is facing the necessity now to put together, to manage this plurality of voices. And, I mean, political struggle becomes more complex. Political representation becomes more complex.
Or to ignore them because government is big and powerful and small.
Exactly.